Hello, my friends. Thank you for joining me. Thanks for stopping by. I really appreciate it. That's awesome that you're here today. So, my name is Jason, and this is the Outstanding Life Show. We talk about all things recovery. We talk about things that are important to the recovery path. There's been quite a few shows. I went through and I looked and I was counting them all. And there actually ended up being, I think, 12. This is number 13. 13 episodes of the Outstanding Life Show. Now, that's if you count the pre-setup ones, where I had a couple episodes at the beginning where it was me setting up the whole ordeal. We've covered topics ranging from, well, we talked about stress in one episode. We talked about triggers, so like the buildup of stress, and then what would trigger that. We talked about what would happen if we hit rock bottom. That was a pretty deep one. We've gone into detail about relationships, so healthy relationships. We had another good conversation about community, and that was a really fun one. I like the community one. Well, I like them all, really. I'm kind of biased. And then, man, I can't believe we've gone over so much. So today we're actually talking about resentments. So with resentments, I had wanted to ask, let me get this up ready, sorry, for the next one. Do you have any resentments? And so when it comes to resentments, what is a resentment? And so before we jump into that, one of the things we had in recovery in the past episodes, I've shared when I ended up going to rehab. And when I was in rehab, we had to go through an exercise. And one of the exercises was to document, what I had shared what step one was. Like, we had to document all the things we had consumed and over a timeline, and then to make it into almost like a book or like a novel. And it was a gut-wrenching experience just because you have to pour your heart and your soul into this step one. And you can't really get to step two unless you're ready to go ahead and move forward. And part of that was documenting everything. And I think the last episode we had to go into like the 12 different steps of the recovery program. So for me in my recovery in rehab, step one, writing it all down, that took quite a bit. And we had to not just document it, but also be prepared to make amends. And part of the amend process is to identify that we ourselves had built up these resentments. And one of the more, I want to say, challenging things while I was there at the treatment center was, it wasn't really the classes. It wasn't going to the meetings. It wasn't the speaking with the counselors or getting to know everybody. It was actually because I was there with 50 other guys, 50 other guys, and you get to know everybody by the end. There were strangers in the beginning, but what ends up happening is you develop this community, like we talked about before, and we actually ended up getting this level of accountability that I want to say in my mind, not many other people were aware of. I mean, when I was right at the end, before I jumped into the world of recovery, before I made the decision to make healthy thoughts and healthy decisions, I had hid that level of anxiety. I hid that level of transparency from everybody. So I wasn't actually being honest. I wasn't being transparent. I wasn't being open. And when you're not open, honest, and truthful, it's easy to build up resentments. So in recovery, part of the steps there was getting to the point where you acknowledge that you were holding a resentment, like getting to that idea that what part of you is saying this, what part of you is feeling this way. And the challenge was, I actually ended up going and, hold on, I'm just going to remove the lower third. And part of the challenge was, I actually ended up going and you get confronted. So I was there for 9 weeks, and then throughout the 9-week process, if I was talking with somebody and I was sharing something, I was talking about my life, or I was talking about the outside world, and I end up commenting on something, and then someone overheard it, and they could pick up the slightest, tiniest bit of resentment. Like they could just smell it, barely hidden in the innuendos in the conversation. And then what would happen would be is the person that was overhearing, another member in the program, would turn and say, "Hey, how's that step 4 coming along?" And step 4 is making a fearless and moral inventory search of yourselves. And what that means in English is that what part of you is identifying this as a challenge? And then is it you that's harboring this resentment? Is it you that's bringing forward this resentment? Are you I don't want to say you're the cause, but it's your observation of the matter that's making it this mountain out of a molehill. And it's just causing yourself to put that in check. And when you hear that the first time, when I heard it the first time, I certainly wasn't open to the idea of someone telling me, "Hey, how's your step 4 coming along?" And then you're in the middle of sharing something and you're like, "What? What do you mean I was just talking about something else." And they're like, "Well, no, the part of you that's saying this is the one that's..." And when you hear it from one guy, that's one thing. But when you start hearing it from 2, 3, 4, 50 other guys, pretty soon the only person that's not being transparent and honest ends up being the guy sharing. And that's where it's like, oh man, okay, this is a whole other side of things that I wasn't prepared for. I expected going into treatment or recovery, not that I thought it was going to be all kumbaya and, we'd sit around the circle and with a guitar and sing. No, it was none of that. It was guys holding each other accountable, calling each other out. And that, for me, it wasn't so much going to the meetings, because with all the meetings we had to go to in rehab there was a morning meeting. So before breakfast, we had to go to like class, and then we had a meeting after dinner, and then we had to go to an external meeting. And over the course of 9 weeks, that was like hundreds of meetings, over 200 meetings, which is insane. And who you are at the beginning of that process and who I was at the end wasn't the same person. Because when you're called out, when you're held to that accountability standard, when you are with other guys who are also at the same level they're growing at the same rate as you are, that are in the same struggle and can identify and smell what you're putting down, and that's where they can see through you. And that for me was a huge part about going to the treatment center I went to, because the people that were in the program had graduated from the program itself. So the people who worked there had actually been through it. And I wanted that level of accountability. I wanted that level of transparency. I wasn't used to it at the beginning. I need to be honest and share that with you now. I wasn't open to that idea. And it took me weeks for me to finally let that out, to let go, to remove that harboring of resentments, this idea that I had in my head. And once I've gotten to that idea of not so much what a resentment is, but I was open to the concept of, it's something that I have the ability to manage. Like I have the ability to let go. What is it? The idea, the recognition of the limits of our knowledge give us the ability to release us from those bonds that we don't even see. And so I'm not saying once you've identified a resentment, you can have the ability to let it go. Well, no, but what we can do is we can use it to help identify what part of us is feeling that way. In a previous episode of this show, we ended up talking about, what are some key signals that we can identify with before the habit becomes a problem. Before things elevate from just a stress into a trigger, and before the trigger erupts into a whole... The example we gave was like a matchstick in the garbage bin, and when you take the garbage bin and you throw it into a garbage can, and then you throw the garbage can in a garbage bin, and pretty soon the fire gets bigger and bigger and bigger. If left unchecked, these resentments can be quite challenging for a normal person. In another episode, we talked about normal people, normies, and then for someone that's on the struggle, for someone that's in the heat of their addiction, for the person that's fighting to make the right decisions, healthy, mindful decisions, it can be quite a challenge when you add the burdens on top of each other, when you add those stressors and they stack. I just noticed the timer has hit 0. Okay, let's remove the timer. So for resentment, here I wanted to show you guys something. If you got the reminders, actually that reminds me. So I sent a reminder to everybody. Well, not everybody. The people that wanted to get a notification, I'd had them type show in the comments in a previous episode. And what will happen is if you do type show in the comments, I'll have a message sent out to you for a reminder the next time we go live. So if you're interested, if you like what we're doing or like what we're talking about, type show in the comments, shoot me a message, say hello. We'll follow up, we'll chit chat, we'll hang out, we'll be cool. But if you had signed up previously, I'll show you something. This is what I had sent out ahead of time. So in the message I sent out, it was, I don't know if you guys remember this. This is, which screen is it? Okay, it's over here. Oh my God. Okay, it's over here. So here we have, this is from The Lion King, and this one is Rafiki. This guy was so fun. I must have been 8-10 years old when I saw this. Where this is after he had hit Simba on the head, and Simba was like, hey, you just hit me in the head, that hurt. And then Rafiki comes back and he's like, well, yeah, the past can hurt, but the way I see it, you can either run from it or you can learn from it. And I don't want to say that didn't resonate with me at the beginning, but I don't think I really appreciated the meaning behind that. I don't think I really held on to that thought till here I am at 30 plus years old and I'm reliving The Lion King, watching it. But yeah, this is, for me, the idea of resentment, it touches upon the same concept or the same idea. I remember I was sitting there and I was in treatment, I was in recovery. I think this was probably week 6 or 7, 5, I can't remember now. It's all blurring together. And part of the program is you have to get to know each of the counselors. You have to become friends with them. And once you've become friends with them, you can graduate to the next step. And then there's quite a few steps, as you can imagine. So you have to become friends with the counselors. You have to convince them. You have to be honest and truthful, everything we mentioned before, in order to progress and move forward. And I was sharing with this one counselor. I was really upset. I was really angry. I was frustrated. I was sharing feedback about somebody that was in my life, and I remember the feeling. I felt crushed, and I felt you can see my body as I shrink and my voice goes lower, and I was like, oh, I felt disappointed and angry and frustrated. And I was sharing this with a counselor, and the counselor ended up going, and he was like, okay, Jason. And he let me talk, and which was awesome. He did. The counselor was awesome. And after 10 minutes of venting about this person in my life, I'd called them all sorts of names, to be honest and transparent. None of those I'll repeat today. And we ended up going and sharing. And he asked me, and he's like, I got one question for you. And I was like, okay, sure, go ahead, ask them. And he's like, well, did you have a good, solid foundation with this person? And I thought about it, because I had just been to recovery school. Like you go to class for recovery, and I was like, well, no. Based on what I've learned, I did not have a solid foundation with this person. And he's like, okay. So if you know you don't have a solid foundation from this person, is there anything else you want to talk about? And right away, my mind flashed back to this Lion King thing where I was like, oh man, the past, it can definitely hurt, but the way I see it, I can either learn from it or I can run from it. And I couldn't believe it. I was like, holy cow, this girl in my life at the time had taken up so much of my time, effort, my energy, and I had built up this idea of resentment, and I was holding on to it. And I've been holding on to it for so long. And in letting it make decisions for me, it became an unhealthy amount of resentment. We'll touch on that later about how healthy can a resentment be, but the idea behind it is, my friend Vanessa, who's amazing, she had commented there's thoughts there's facts and then there's feelings. And hold on, let me get rid of Rafiki here. Okay, so there's facts and then there's feelings. And then the facts are things that have actually taken place. The facts are things that are actual events. And then the feelings are what we've identified, that we've attached to those things. So the facts are A, B, and C. And then the feelings are what we derive from those facts. And it was the resentments that I was building up were not stemming from the facts, but from the feelings I was associating to those facts. And I was getting more anxious, more frustrated, more resentful, right? And I was getting more resentful the more I thought about it, the more I let these things take control of me, the more rampant I let my thoughts go, the more out of control it became. And the more I'm letting that resentment harbor space inside me, the more I let that take up space in my life, the less room I have for anything else. What kind of person, at the time I was upset, with the counselor I was upset about the relationship I was in. And I was really upset about this person in my life. And the counselor just saw right through it. And he jumped in and he was like, okay, did you have a solid foundation? I was like, no. And he's like, okay, is there anything else you want to talk about? And I was floored. I was like, holy crap, he's right. This whole time I've been letting it take up way more than it's adding value. And then it became a lot easier to deal with. And the rest of life, everything else around it suddenly becomes in the picture. Things are easier to manage. As soon as I remove that anxiousness, as soon as I remove that sense of resentment, pretty soon things became, I don't want to say like colors became brighter, flowers smelled nicer. None of that. It was more so things were not building up anymore. And as soon as I took control of my life, as soon as I made that decision that it was no longer, holy cow. Okay, then that feeling made me feel better. The air smelled crisper, the colors were brighter. But at no point in time was I letting this make a decision for me. And it comes at a certain point. Like you have to hit that event crisis point before we're willing to be open. I don't know. Okay, I've been talking for quite a while. I want to check out the comments and see who's here. I had left a message at the beginning saying hi in the comments. Let us know where you're watching from. Petra's here. Hello, Petra. Thank you for stopping by. That is awesome. I love that you got new show times. They're going to be early in the morning for me. Hey, kitty. But that's still awesome. Thanks for stopping by and watching. I really appreciate that. And here we have thumbs up from Dion. Hello, Dion. Thank you for stopping by. That means a lot. We need to control our way of thinking. I've been through facts and feelings in the past few months. Yes, that's right. Thoughts and feelings. It's amazing how much once we identify that, how much easier the rest of things can become manageable. And the part about recovery, just circling back to that component, the part about recovery is that our lives had become unmanageable. And, I've got the book. I've got the blue book, and they call it in the Alcoholics Anonymous. It's the big blue book. There's quite a few stories in it, but it identifies that, yes, there was a problem and our lives had become unmanageable. And when you start realizing that there's those events that led up to it, we jump into another part. Hold on, I want to bring up the lower third. Yeah, so are there any bad resentments? So when it comes to resentments, when I reference bad resentments, what I'm referring to is anything that's left out of control. Is there anything that in recovery, we would call it stinkin' thinking. I don't know, STINKIN, stinkin', and then thinking. And if I let this alcoholic mind, if I let this, if I'm making decisions with a clouded judgment, this resentment, it can get out of control. It doesn't motivate me to want to do amazing things. It doesn't motivate me to want to take control of my life. It doesn't want to motivate me to get out of bed, go to the gym, have a healthy relationships. None of this stuff adds value by itself. A resentment isn't going to make me feel whole. A resentment isn't going to wrap its arms around me and tell me everything's going to be okay. There's no time for resentment in my life. It's okay. I can have a resentment. I heard this one thing where the same counselor I was talking about, he was telling me that He doesn't have a bad day. And I was like, what do you mean you don't have a bad day? Everybody's got a bad day. What are you talking about? And he was like saying, well, I might have a bad minute and I might even have a bad hour, but he doesn't let it control his life to the point that he doesn't have a bad day. And he doesn't have a bad week or a bad month or a bad year or a bad decade, but he does have bad minutes and he might even have a bad hour. And when he compartmentalizes it, as soon as I heard that was possible, I was floored. This idea of living a life resentment free. Resentment free is the way to be. And so, can there be bad resentments? Well, when it's a momentary resentment, if it's a learning opportunity, perfect. Yes, we can pick ourselves up, we can move forward, but it's not something that's going to hold us down. If anything, we could use it to motivate us, to move us forward. We're going to take the lower third down. So it might move us forward, but it's not going to hold us down. It's not going to limit our ability to live an outstanding life. The kind of person that watches this show doesn't have resentments, doesn't harbor a resentment, doesn't let it make control our lives. So when I say, is there a bad resentment? Yes, it is. I want to share something. So today, so a year ago, my father passed away. Today is that day, a year ago. And we ourselves, we necessarily didn't have the most positive, supportive, encouraging relationship. I didn't see much of him. I remember him, my most fondest memory of him was when we went to Disneyland. And I thought that was an amazing experience. As a kid, we, after Disneyland, we ended up not seeing each other that much. I had, in full transparency, he had gotten drunk and had left me in a public area, and I found my way to an arcade and I was playing video games all night, and it ended up I didn't see much of him beyond that, and it was easy to harbor resentments. And for the longest time, I chose to, I wasn't sure how to perceive that as a kid. I don't know how to dissect that or to make sense of it. And for the longest time, I had made up excuses and reasons to why things happened. And when I moved forward with my life and I let go of those resentments, when I let go of those ideas, of those restrictions that were holding me down, I almost feel like I was labeling it, like I was dismissing it in my mind. I was trying to compartmentalize it, but I wasn't moving through it. Like, you can label it and you can dismiss it, but that doesn't mean you've managed it or dealt with it. And for me, that was my moment. And what I had dealt with and what I chose to try and deal with wasn't working and it wasn't helping. But as soon as I moved forward with this idea of, I almost want to say forgiveness, and you release, and when you move forward with thankfulness and appreciation for what you have in your life, and those experiences make you more, when they make you, those things move you forward more than the resentments. And as soon as I let go of those resentments, as soon as I let go of the idea of lack or not enough, pretty soon I had more room in my life for everything else. So pretty soon when I look back on those experiences growing up as a kid, rather than worry about the negative things that happen, I instead focus on the thankfulness and appreciation that I have, not just for so much who I am or what it's made me become, but also I remember the feeling of when my dad did take me to Disneyland, and I remember the idea of being there and all the different, as a 7-year-old kid, you're just having so much fun, you're being exciting, and I ended up going and saying, you know what I'm going to do? I'm going to have fun. I ended up going and we went on these tours, those tour buses, you go on a ride and, you're on the bus and then okay, and to your left, you look at Mickey Mouse's house. And then to your right, you'll see Goofy's dog door or whatever. I remember going on these tours and I remember this feeling of having fun on this adventure, and I went on we stayed inside the resort. I remember being in Disneyland and waking up every day, and the Disneyland passes were on the bed, and you'd wake up every morning and you're like, holy crap, we get to go to Disneyland again. And it was for 7 days or 5 days, I can't remember. But as a kid, that's an eternity. And I remember the idea of going on these tours. And there was this one tour operator, and she happened to be manning one tour one day and another tour another day. Like, these are totally different tours. But she remembered me as a kid. And she had called out on the MC. She was talking to everybody, welcoming them on board. And when I came on board, I remember her taking a minute, and it was 30 seconds out of her day, but she had taken a minute to celebrate that I was her buddy, I was her friend, and I'm from Canada, and I'm here on this tour. And I think it was like my birthday the week before, but she got everybody to like celebrate that moment. And that idea of connection, that community, that feeling of celebration at that young age stuck with me. And I was like, holy cow, this person is making my day. And that feeling, connecting others, having fun, lifting each other up, that feeling, when I let go of the resentment, when I let go of all that anger and frustration and that negativity that I had towards like growing up as a kid, maybe I didn't have the best relationship with my dad, but as soon as I moved forward, once I let go of it, once I released it, I realized then that that feeling that I had at that young age on that tour bus helped shape me as a person in the sense that has driven me to do what I do today. I work in an industry where I help people every day. I help connect each other and help make experiences that are positive and supporting. I try and not cookie cutter that out, but I make it a mission to want to help impact others and lift them up. Holy cow. Like, I don't want to say like resentment can stop all this from happening, but it can stop you from realizing that there's an amazing life out there. There's way more out there than being angry, upset, resentful, frustrated, negative. I mean, sure, those things have a place in our life, but they don't belong permanently in our lives. There's way more cooler things for us to do. I wanted to show you guys something here. Hold on. I saw this quote, and it really stuck with me. Okay, I'm going to bring this in as an overlay. Yes, okay, so this quote is talking about holding on to anger, resentment, and hurt only gives us tense muscles, a headache, a sore jaw from clenching your teeth. But then forgiveness, it gives you back the laughter and the lightness in your life. I don't know who Joan London is, but man, I don't know about you, but living a life that's resentment free is the way to be. Like, it doesn't make sense to continually let ourselves be controlled by it. Okay, so let's move forward. What are we talking about? We're talking about, as an addict, resentments can run rampant, and if left unchecked, they can get out of control. And that's, oh, I heard this other thing. This one is fun. This is a meme. Oh, wait, I don't think that worked. No. Oh, maybe I'll have to go full screen on this one. There we go. Okay. So this one, it says, what do Plato and Ice Cube have in common? And then Plato says, the unexamined life is not worth living. But then Ice Cube will say, you better check yourself before you wreck yourself. And I thought that was awesome. It's not every day you can say you've got Ice Cube and Plato in the same meme. And so relating back to the alcoholic and the addict, you know, if left unchecked, these things can run rampant. These things can harbor, they can fester like this burning hole. And nobody wants to leave that. No one wants to live that life. I mean, if you do, you're not going to get that far. If you do, you're not going to have a rewarding sense of satisfaction. You're not going to have a life of fulfillment. It can be a challenge just to get through today on a daily basis with everything that's going on. It's even harder if we're living our life with these limiting beliefs, if we're living our life that's compounded by these negative aspirations. So if you're new here, hold on, I want to do this. So if you're new here, my name is Jason. This is the Outstanding Life Show. We talk about recovery. We're talking about overcoming addiction. If you're new here and you like what we're talking about, or if you want to know more information, get a reminder the next time we go live. Type show in the comments and we'll send you a message for the next time we go live. It's actually pretty cool. It's interactive. But jumping back into the resentment category, as an alcoholic, resentments, they don't give any room for growth and prosperity. And I heard this amazing thing where it talked about, if you're angry and resentful in the same idea or the same moment, you cannot be full of growth in the same opportunity. So the space that harbors resentments and growth can't take place at the same time. And if all I'm ever doing, if all I ever see, and if all I ever believe is these limiting beliefs, or if all I ever look at is, like, imagine the world as 360 degrees of mirrors. And in those 360 degrees, you're looking out. But when you're looking out, you're actually looking at aspects of yourself as what you're observing first. And so if all I ever see and if I ever look at is these negative pinpoints, then I'm only ever going to notice those things in me. And I don't want to say that, put rose-colored glasses on. No. What I'm referring to, though, is if I look for aspects of myself and others, and I look for ways to identify with other people more than I look at separating, if I look at ways to identify or label and dismiss, I'm going to miss out on a lot of cool people. There's amazing people out there that are adding value, supportive, encouraging. And if I look at ways of being resentful, if I show up with my resentment first, I'm not going to have room for enabling positive relationships. I'm not going to have any positive interactions that I'm going to grow from, because I'm going to be too soon to look for reasons to dismiss. I'm looking for too many ways to disqualify or discredit. And that's no way to live life. I mean, I'm sure I could, but it's not going to be as powerful, supportive, encouraging, developmental. It's crazy. So resentments, they're okay in the small aspect of things if we're using them to motivate us or to move us forward, but it's not okay if we're letting them make decisions for us or if they're holding us back. But if I can jump into the comments real quick, I want to see Petra. Petra is saying, we are aligned. At least we are aligned. The stupid globe with the time zones. Yes. No, that's pretty cool. I know the time zone. Isn't it like 7 in the morning where you are? 6 in the morning? I can't remember. But thank you, Petra, for stopping by. I really appreciate it. Okay, so on the topic of resentments, I want to chime in on asking another question. Do we contribute to our circumstances? And by we, I really mean me. Like, do I contribute to my circumstances? Am I partly responsible for this event? So what I'm trying to say is, if I'm beginning to believe I'm developing a resentment, am I partly responsible for the contributing factors? Like, if I'm upset at somebody for doing something, what did I do beforehand? Like, am I keeping my side of the street clean? Hold on, let me remove the lower third. So if I'm developing a resentment, what did I do beforehand that led up to it? Like, if I'm upset that somebody, let's say they're angry at me and I become resentful towards them, well, did I contribute to their anger? Maybe I borrowed $20 from them or something and I didn't pay them back and now they're angry. Now I'm just going to use that as an excuse to be resentful. It's crazy how the alcoholic and addict mind will think, but those are things that I'll tell myself. Those are justifications that I'll run with if I let my resentments out of control. It's amazing how these things can build up on themselves. They're not healthy. They're not supportive. They're not encouraging. They're not the way to living outstanding life. So when I say, did I contribute to my circumstances, what I mean is, am I keeping my side of the street clean? Am I owning up to everything I can before I bring up that resentment? Like, before I give that resentment value? It's okay to have those ideas, but again, it's not okay to let them run rampant and out of control. it's important that what is it we said? We got to check ourselves before we wreck ourselves, like the Ice Cube quote. It's important to have that self-management. I heard it explained once. It was really cool. An inner locus of control, if I remember. If I have an inner locus of control, I'm identifying myself in this moment, but I'm also being aware of my contributing factors, so the surroundings around me. I am aware of how I'm associating those thoughts or those facts and then those feelings. Remember we talked about that earlier? We talked about Dion, she was sharing. So having those facts and then those feelings, the facts are the actual events that took place, and then the feelings are what we've attached to those. And if the feelings that I'm sensing are the ones that are causing the rising resentment to build, if I don't control that, if I don't put that in check, if I don't identify what part of me is feeling this way, this resentment will grow out of control until pretty soon it's taking over and it's making decisions. And I don't want to say I've ever made a healthy decision in a resentment-filled brain. So most of my day is built around what can I do to keep myself, I go to the gym, I make sure I eat healthy, I'm getting all the rest I need, I'm making sure that I've fed my cat. These are the important things in life, making sure I've got trusting, worthy relationships. Part of my ability to connect with others is actually doing things like this, putting on the show, having fun, talking about these things that matter. I'm on my own path, like my own recovery path. I still am thankful every day. Like I go to meetings. I love connecting with others, and I love reaching out to you guys. And I want to say thank you for stopping by. We do have we're just finishing up here. So before we close out, we've got holding on to resentments can limit our potential. And if we're limiting our potential, that's where we're constricting ourselves. And it gives room to high stress, anxiety, these feelings of overwhelm. At no point are they going to be those supporting ideas that I don't want to say that, because then just speaking quickly about when I was in recovery and I started my treatment and I was in rehab, and then the first time someone told me, you're being resentful, you should check yourself before you wreck yourself. I really wasn't open to that level of conversation at the beginning. And it took the first conversation, the 10th conversation, the 20th conversation, before I was open to the idea of what if these things that I'm being resentful about have nothing to do with the thing I'm looking at, and it's got everything to do with me. And it's got everything to do with how I'm showing up. It's got everything to do with the way I'm presenting myself, the way I'm perceiving events. And it took a lot for me to ask the question, like, not how would I be wrong if I was wrong? But when I went to the Tony Robbins event in New York, he would ask, we would walk across fire, which is amazing. It was huge. But it was like, if what else could this mean? Well, we know how you're just perceiving the moment, but what else could this mean? This could mean that the person that's harming me, maybe they're upset. Maybe they don't know how to deal with things. Not that I'm justifying someone's actions towards me, but what if it means more than the label I'm associating to it? What if it means more than what I'm limiting? I admittedly can't see past what I don't understand. And if I'm not willing to recognize the limits of my knowledge, I'm never going to be free from the restrictions of the belief that there's no way I know everything. There's no way that I have full transparency and insight into the inner workings of how things unfold. But what I can recognize is that there's more out there for me to learn. There's more out there for me to do and contribute. And part of that means admitting that I'm wrong. Part of that means admitting I need help when I need help. And that conversation wasn't easy the first time that idea crossed in my head. It took me a while to be open to the idea that I was wrong. It took me a while to open up to somebody to reach out that I needed help. It took me a while to we talked about vulnerability in a previous episode. It took me a while to be vulnerable to somebody, to let them know that this is how I'm feeling. Being afraid. We talked about fear in another one. I can't believe we've got 12 or 13 episodes about all the different things we've gone over. It's been pretty fun these last 12, 13 episodes. I can't believe how much enjoyment and satisfaction I get from showing up. I love sharing these thoughts, these ideas. People message me every week, and the messages they share, not everyone comments, and I know that. I know there's a lot of lurkers out there, but I know that there's people that are connecting with the message, and the messages they share are heartwarming, and it moves me forward to want to help and come back and show up and to do more. So I want to say thank you. I want to celebrate this moment. Okay, so my name is Jason. This is the Outstanding Life Show. We talk about recovery, overcoming addiction. We talk about all things in between. If you want a reminder about what we're talking about, if you're watching the replay and you want a reminder, type show in the comments. We'll have a message sent out to you the next time we go live. It's amazing, these things we come up with. I do little videos, like little short blurbs. But yeah, before we go, I want to talk about the safety moment. Every week we have a safety moment. We share. It's okay to not know all the answers. It's okay to have these questions, and it's okay if you have these thoughts. There's support out there. I do want to share that, this show is meant for people who have made the decision that this is what you want to do. I'm not here to convince anybody that this is something you should do, but I do want to let this be an avenue or a tool or a skill set for people who have already made the choice that they want to live this outstanding life. But I want to say thank you, everybody, for stopping by. It really means a lot. I wanted to share my gratitude and appreciation. We had gratitude as another episode a few weeks ago. Again, if you want to watch out more, feel free to check out the other episodes. If you want to say hi, type show in the comments. If you want to shoot me a message, say hello. That's all sorts of awesome. I look forward to connecting with each and every one of you. But yeah, I want to say thank you. Okay, everybody. Take care. Have fun. Bye.